Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Alexandria End of Year Procedures for version 7. My name is Seneca, and I will be walking you through this workshop today, and I am joined here with our other wonderful trainer, Josh, and he will be taking a look at any of the questions that are coming through, and if there's ones that he thinks are more important for everyone to hear, we will wait for our Q&A so that I can answer them live. Just as a little side note, you will notice that the chat has been turned off. Now, if you do have any questions, the way you can access that is by wiggling your mouse up towards the top or bottom of your screen. Sometimes Zoom will have it in different areas, but there will be a tool called Q&A. Go ahead and submit any questions through there. As I had mentioned, Josh will be vetting and taking a look at all of those. And then we will pause 2 different times, once in the middle and then again at the end of the training for any of those questions that are more beneficial for everyone to kind of go through. I'm going to do that a couple more times because I don't know how to change slides. So today we are going to be covering for our end of year more of why should you have end of year procedures, what you should be doing with the items in your collection at the end of the year, what to do with the patrons in your collection, and then backing up your data. So to get started of why you should have end of year procedures, really so that you can have a nice clean database so that coming in next year, you're gonna have less work for you to do. You're also going to want to be taking out any of your old information, such as discarded items or any graduated students. Again, just making sure that everything's nice and clean and ready to go for the next year. Let's go ahead and we're going to switch over to my Alexandria screen now. And a couple of things that you should be going over. Sorry, let me go back over here. Of what you should do before you start your end of year procedures. Really, you're going to want to first and foremost have a plan set. So make sure that you're kind of planning everything out so that you know what's to come. Definitely make sure that you keep in mind that you do have many resources available to you. You do have 24/7 support with us. You have our wonderful support center. And that's where I'm going to switch over here. If you are not familiar with our support center, from your Alexandria window or interface, there's a couple different areas that you can access that from. The first is right here on the circulation with this support button at the bottom of your window, and that's just going to take you to the main page. But you can also access this by the question mark at the upper right-hand side of any one of your Alexandria modules. So definitely take advantage of that support center, of your 24/7 support. And we do also have a YouTube page. I'm just going to pull that one up here just so you can take a look. And this has a lot of different videos, training videos. All of our previous workshops are also going to be listed here in our YouTube. So again, a lot of resources for you to kind of view, but also to help you make that plan of what it is that you're going to want to do here at the end of the year. And this webinar will also be recorded, so you are able to watch it in the future as well. And that will be listed on our support center as well as here on YouTube. So next, what we're going to start with is what to do with the items within your collection. Now, last month for our workshop, we did cover inventory. So if you have not viewed inventory, that's generally something that we would suggest doing first, just so that way you do have a nice clean item database kind of ready for these next couple steps here. If you have not viewed that, again, give us a call. We can point you to the right direction for that workshop. Once your inventory is done, however, one of the first things you're going to want to do is run some end of year reports. So I'm going to pop here under our tool section and under reports. And while we do have a lot of different reports, there are some more specific that we do like to suggest running here for the end of year. And the ones I'm going to highlight most are going to be the copies. And we're just going to pop under the copy status, and then using that arrow icon, we're going to go under the special status category. And as you see here, we have discarded copies as well as lost copies. And I do like to showcase these different than inventory, because even if you're maybe not doing inventory this year, generally throughout the year, you will still be placing items into these two categories of discarded and lost. And before you remove them, it is important that you come in here and run these reports so you actually have a physical copy of the report of what was placed in here before the removals. So definitely take a look at these two reports and run them as you see fit. If you don't even use lost or discarded, this might just be an extra step that you don't even need at this point. Now, we do also have different reports that you can use for usage or statistics, and they are going to be different. So I'm going to actually open up my titles, copies, as well as the statistics category. And you'll see that we have a title usage area, copy usage, as well as all those statistics, and they all three are different. Your title usage reports are going to be specific to the title record, so including all of the copies. They're not going to be separated. The copy usages are going to be broken down into the actual physical barcoded copies that you have and those specific usages for that one barcoded copy. And then we have our statistics, which if you are familiar with our policies, these policies are what drive your statistics. So that's where you would be separating them into your own groups that you want to be gathering statistics on. Now, the one that I honestly see get used the most here is this usage by time period. And this is a good way that even if you don't have specific policies set up, but you want more usage information for your collection as a whole, I do like to showcase this report here. And I'm just going to go ahead and run this. And I'm going to leave my date range blank as I don't have any actual circulation here in my demo database. But keep in mind that you are able to put a date range in for this specific school year. And you have multiple options to sort the information and the formatting as well. So I'm going to run this just so you can see the information that would be printed. And what's nice about this is it's going to not only give you the totals here at the bottom, but it is breaking it up into specific areas. So the checkouts for the year, how many renewals, items checked in, as well as those holds. So this is a really good report to run here at the very end of the year. But of course, all of the usages reports and statistic reports aren't just for the end of the year. You can definitely be running these as often as you would like. Now, some things to keep in mind if you would like to be breaking these into actual different types of statistics report. Again, you do have to have your policies set. So I'm just going to go ahead now and let's go over to our tool section again and into our preferences here. And within preferences, we do have that policies area. And you will see here at the bottom, we do have statistics groups for your patrons and your items. So if you have specific statistics for fifth graders and you only want fifth graders, you will need a policy set for that. Now, while we're here under our policies, one important thing to keep in mind, not only for the ending of this year, but something that you can set up now for the beginning of next year are going to be your transaction periods or your hard due dates. Now, a transaction period is what is generally going to be used, as this is saying, I want this to be due every 14 days, once a week, however you'd like. Whereas a hard due date is more for those specific items, more as if you're a one-to-one school and you have Chromebooks or iPads that need to be due at the end of the year. Now, we do also have something that's called a period due date, and those are going to work differently than hard due dates as well. And a period due date is going to be set under our calendars here. And that's more where it's going to respect your transaction period. And I'm just going to click twice here on Friday the 24th to have it say period due. And what this is now going to do is if someone was to check out an item on May 8th and I had a 2-week transaction period, it will not force it to the 24th like a hard due date would. This is still going to go to the 22nd. But if someone checked something out on the 20th, instead of going down to June 3rd, it will see that that period due date does come before and then have it due there. So there is a difference between those two, which they both have their very specific uses. Both do definitely come in handy. Now, once the kind of preferences and everything is set that way, another really important thing to do with your items is going to be removing those lost and discarded items. So again, getting your database cleaned up for next year. I'm just going to close out of these two here. So we're back on our tools. We're going to take a look at those utilities now. So you ran your reports, you know what was in lost and discarded. Now it's time to get them out of the system. So while we're under utilities, we can go under our copies category. And we're going to go ahead and go down to our last two utilities for copies, which is the remove discarded copies and remove lost. And you'll see that the options or the selections that you have are similar. However, they do work differently. So they are specific to whatever status they are currently in. Usually with your discarded copies, since they're things that you've actually wanted to remove out of the system, you can leave this blank and then run it. That way you're just removing anything at that time. Versus your lost copies, you might want to actually enter in a date range for when it was lost, because a lot of times those lost copies might be coming back into the library. So you might want to keep them in for a year or two, depending on your processes there at your library. Next, we're going to go ahead and move on to what to do with the patrons in your collection. But before that, I do want to open this up a little bit for any questions that you may have about that item section or anything. So if you do have any questions, go ahead and send those in now, and we'll have Josh take a look at those. All right, Josh, did we get any questions coming in?
Yeah, we do actually. We kind of have a fun one that does relate to what you were just talking about with policy and statistic group setup. And it's a question from Angie Hell. And let me kind of read the question, probably the easiest way. And I think it might be very interesting for everybody because it is helpful. She wants to know that, she says, we want to gather statistics for boys versus girls and by grade. So I'm assuming their usage. If I am understanding this correctly, we could do this by setting up a separate policy to each group with a different statistic group. So instead of one policy for all students in grade 10 through 12, we could do 6 policies, 10th grade girls, 10th grade boys, etc. Would those separate statistics be available if we do this?
Definitely. So if you did have each of those different groups, so 10th grade boys, 10th grade girls, and so forth, you would then be able to go under your reports. And I'm just going to pop back under here so you can kind of see what I'm talking about. And you can go by, usage by patron policy, where you could then say patrons in policy, and I don't have those set up, but as an example, 10th grade boys are what I want to see, or 10th grade girls. So as long as those are set up in your policies, you are able to run those reports to get the usage. One thing I do want to, though, just so everyone is aware, policies are amazing, but sometimes they can get a little messy if you have too many of them. So, if that's something that you want to use and you do want to have a lot of them, just keep in mind that that is going to be more update and upkeep that you need to be taking a look at as the years to come, just to make sure, if anything does changes, it does get reflected in each one of those policies.
That's perfect. Thank you very much for commenting on that.
Were there any other questions?
Nope, that should be it. I think we're all good. Thank you very much.
All right, perfect. So we were just talking about patrons with the policies, which is where we're actually going to be talking here about in just a moment as well. So the next section that we're going to be covering is what to do with the patrons in your collection, which again, as I had mentioned, cleaning up those patron policies. So if you do have multiple, you will want to take a look at all of them, advancing your patrons, and then removing your graduated patrons. Jumping back over here to Alexandria, and I don't know why I closed out of my preferences because we're about to jump back right in there. For cleaning up your patron policies. So again, under policies, we do have our patron section, and these are going to be, again, specific to rules for how your circulation is going to be running, but also those statistics. So if you do have multiple, you want to always come in here, take a look at each one of your patron policies, just make sure that everything is set up correctly. Now, this is also a good time to mention this exceptions button. Now, this exceptions button is a way to lock in place two different policies, your patron policy and whatever item policy is set up. And I'm going to use fiction here as an example. So if I wanted my high school students to be able to check out fiction items for a longer transaction period, you can actually have this set. So I'm making an exception to my transaction period rule only when high school students are dealing with that. And I'm going to say they get, let's go ahead and just say 18 days, a little bit longer than 2 weeks. Now, the reason I want to showcase this is while you are looking through your different policies, even if this isn't checked, if there is an exception being made, you will see this little yellow line. So just go through, make sure if you do see this, this little yellow line that you check that to make sure that whatever exceptions are currently being made, that those are going to be correct for the next upcoming year as well. So going through your policies, again, having less work for you to do as the beginning of the year comes up here in a couple months, just to make your life a little bit easier. Next, to advance your patron grades, the easiest way is if you go to this show all, while we're still in preferences, we're actually going to go into our patron preferences. And we have a grade table. Now, the grade table here is really important for multiple reasons. This is where not only reports and different areas of the program will help you search through your grades, but of course, again, for advancing your patron grades at the end of the year. It is very important that you do come in here and make sure that this middle grade column is not only matching exactly what your patrons are going to be using. So if my second graders are having that 0 padding in their grade field in their record, that needs to be demonstrated here as well. But also that the grades that are listed are ones that you're actually using at your school. So if you're only 8th through 12th, you'll want to come in here and remove 7th or 2nd through 7th. So just keep in mind that this does need to reflect what it is that you're using, but if you are using the Alexandria best practices, this is usually an area that you only have to come into once, again, for those reporting purposes. But if you're using imports and utilities to kind of move everything around, you won't have to advance the grades here through the grade table. However, if you are doing everything manually, this is the preferred way, just popping under your grade table with everything set up as you'd like, and then just clicking that advance all grades here. Now, do only click this once. Sometimes the little pop-up can be a little slow, so Don't start clicking it too many times because it will advance them every time you click it. So just click once, maybe go through, check some of your patrons, make sure they're showing the correct grade now, and then move forward. Now, the last grade here is really important, and that's actually what we're going to be using for our next step for removing our patrons. What this last grade field does is saying whatever is coming after all of these grades, so where my 12th graders would be moving in my case, is into a graduated status or into that graduated grade. And that's then where I can use the grade of graduated to remove them. And I'm going to show you how to do that in just here in one moment. Was there a question?
Yes, there is actually. Chris Johnson was wondering if you would be so kind as to demonstrate how to set up the grade kindergarten for
Perfect.
those who do have it.
Most definitely. So if you have a grade that's not listed already in your grade table, while you're here, go ahead and click the Add button here at the bottom corner. And then you're going to want to change the sort to wherever that's going to be. So kindergarten would be before my 2nd grade. So I'm going to actually have this set to sort 1. You would enter the grade for whatever matching is going to be in the actual patron's record. So I'll just do a K for mine. And then the description of kindergarten. And then we'll add. And you'll see that has now been added here at the top. So before my 2nd grade, all of my sorts have moved where I can then save, and they've now been added to my grade table. Hopefully that answered the question well. So once you've gone through and you've advanced all of your grades, you can then remove those graduated students. And we're going to go back into our tools and utilities here and go to the patrons category. And then we have our remove patrons. Now, depending on your setup, if you have moved them into an inactive status, however you'd like, just make sure you are paying attention to those selections. Now, the most important thing here, though, since we are removing graduated, is that patrons in grade. Oh, if I can spell. And then you can say, oh, graduated through graduated, and I currently don't have any, so it will pop up with no results found. But as long as this is set, and then depending on your setup at your school, any patrons that still have items checked out or owe any charges or fees will not want to be removed. However, if you still want to remove them from the system, go ahead and go under the Options tab, where you can check this box to override Alexandria and still remove those patrons. Any items that they did have checked out at the time of removal will then just be moved into a lost status. All right, so that's going to wrap up our patron section here. And then last but not least is backing up your data. Now, we do have a couple different hosting options. If you are self-hosted, that means that Alexandria is actually going to be maintained, or the data itself is going to be at your site, whether that's at the district and they're managing it, or maybe in the actual library where you're working. That is something that you will want to speak with your technicians about. Make sure they are aware of where it is and what needs to be done. Now, especially here at the end of the year, of course, backing up your data is always important, but since you are going to be leaving for the summer, it's extremely important that they are creating a backup of the data and placing that on a hard drive, in the cloud, somewhere where they can retrieve it just in case anything did happen when you come back at the beginning of next year. So keep that in mind, make sure that that is getting backed up. Of course, if they have any questions whatsoever, if they're not sure where the data is on the machine, as it can be in different areas depending on if you're on a Windows or Mac, definitely have them give us a call. Remember that you do have that 24/7 support, and we're always here to help you out with that. Now, if you're not self-hosted, that's going to mean that you are cloud hosted and that we house your data here and we're taking care of all of that for you. No need to worry. Once you're ready to leave for this summer, you don't have to do any backups or anything. We have all that taken care of here. So just to kind of go over again of what we have covered and, get any of those questions ready here. Why should you have those end of year procedures? What you should be doing with the items in your collection, what to do with the patrons in your collection, and then backing up your data. So what we're gonna go ahead and do now is Josh is gonna be so kind and bring up a poll so that we can gather a little bit of information about your setup and everything, and then send in any of those questions as well so that we can get those answered. And I will be muted just while we take a look at these questions and everything. So hang tight and we will get those answered. Thank you. All right, wonderful. Thank you so much for everyone who has asked any questions, and thanks for going through that poll for us. Josh, were there any questions?
Yeah, there definitely is. We had a good question from Chris Johnson. Chris was wondering if we could take a look at that advanced after feature that is built into the patron grade table screen. I don't know if you could take us back there and kind of walk us through that a bit.
I would be happy to. So that's going to be back here on our preferences, and we already have that grade table pulled up. So here, this advance after field is more of a reference for you. This is not going to be automatically done with Alexandria. So this is more for you to know of when you should be advancing your patrons. Different schools, different sites do have different dates that, everything's kind of wrapping up. So just making sure that that is done at the very end of the year so that you can still get the correct reporting and everything. That's why we have this date field here. And then kind of off topic, but I did also want to mention another way that you are able to actually advance your grades. And that's actually going to be here under our utilities. And it's going to be the first or the second utility, I thought it was the first, just under our patron category, where you can also advance them through here. Sorry, that was something I forgot to mention. So I just wanted to make sure I do show both areas. And Chris, I hope that did answer your question as well about the advance after field.
Chris did actually have a little follow-up.
Perfect.
Chris wants to know if, so the date field doesn't have anything to do with the actual process of advancing the students.
Correct. So you can have any date field here and Alexandria will not do it automatically. This is a reference for you.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Seneca. Now we do have another question from Mardell Martin. Her principal wants to know that the circulation for the year is there and she can run a report for her. So the middle school, high school, elementary.
If they are all in the same database, they're it's going to depend on if you have those policies set up, if you want those types of statistics. But if they are separate, so if you are kind of running those reports for 3 different sites, then you should be able to go under your reports. And then again, kind of depending on what type of circulation reports you're looking for, if it's just main usages or that usage by period report where it's kind of just showing the check-ins, checkouts, renewals, and holds, kind of just depending on what you're looking for. If you're not quite sure, or if your principal needs to elaborate a little more, you can definitely give us a call, let us know exactly what it is that you're looking for, and we'll try to find the best report that'll work for both you and your principal.
Well, and golly gee, I think you have just been that thorough, Seneca. There aren't many other questions. So, I mean, if anybody else does have any other ones they want to submit, please feel free to still do so. Oh, you know what? We actually do have one coming in. Chris would like to know, does the inventory training cover weeding? And I can actually answer that, Chris. Yes, we do talk briefly about that. But if you have any further questions other than that, of course, let us know. We have documentation other than that on weeding as well. So. Well,
All right.
yeah, I kind of hesitant to jump us out and end if we have more questions coming through. And we actually do have one coming through. Patricia Cotter would like to know, is there a report that shows usage for an item that lists patron names?
Not that I am aware of. That's not one that we have currently that'll show I guess not in a report. If you're looking for specifically like a copy history where I want to know if this specific copy of Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix had, you know, how many people, I would be running that by the copy specifically. And I'm just going to pull up one here where you can either go to the copy stats and it will kind of give you some information about the last 5 previous checkouts. Other than that, you know, you may, again, give us a call depending on what it is you're looking for. But unfortunately, there is not going to be a report that's going to list copy usage with patron information at this time. But that is a wonderful idea that we can definitely submit to our ideas committee.
Perfect. And I think Patricia has a little bit of a follow-up. She just says, sometimes we would like to know who has had a copy, not as much as how many times it has been checked out. So, okay, but thank you.
Definitely.
And that does look like that is probably the end of our questions. So anybody else who has anything further they would like to ask, please don't hesitate to reach out to our customer support team. And you might even talk to Seneca or I at some point. So
we'll be happy to help. With that, let us know if you do have any questions. We will be sending out an FAQ in your email with the recorded version of this. Josh will also be putting a link in our chat for the survey. We would love to get feedback on not only this workshop that we've done today, but kind of the year that we've had. So if you don't mind taking a couple minutes when you receive that link, go ahead and fill out that questionnaire for us. And I want to thank everyone so much for joining us today, and I hope you have a wonderful long weekend.